Hey guys, so when I started making this build, I was completely unaware of how much stronger Facebreakers plus Surrender Shield build combo can be, and I was simply building an elemental counter-attack build. I did build like this long ago in my very early days of YouTube, but now in Legion League all the melee skills got buffed, including Reckoning, Riposte and Vengeance. So I spent quite a bit of time messing in pathway building and trying to make this build feel decent. This time using Rebuke of the Vaal sword, which goes up to 1000 DPS, and I managed to reach over 1 million DPS against Shaper with Reckoning. But of course DPS is based on how many times you can block. So I was pretty proud of myself. I managed to revive my old meme build, but with more damage, can't block, so it would be tanky as well. And I just started leveling, and it was great at the start, at least for a meme build. And I knew about Surrender Shield, but it was over 100 C and I didn't really have currency for that, so I went with the elemental like I said. If you don't know, Surrender Shield provides level 30 Reckoning, and level 30 Reckoning is now big deal because with levels these skills also get flare damage. Nonetheless, I continued my elemental build, and at around level 50 I was made aware of how strong Surrender Reckoning build is. And I must say, I was heartbroken. I still kinda am. But because I was stubborn, I still wanted to finish the build and at least show what elemental reckoning build would be like, so you could compare to the pure physical build. Basically, I did this so you don't have to. So about the build, and I had less than 200 heroes budget. I just had pretty bad luck getting good stuff, so I couldn't even really afford Watcher Sai for more conversion. And talking about conversion, well, this is not scaling physical damage converted into elemental for the most part, and instead getting flat elemental damage, and then scaling elemental damage of attacks, then elemental overload, and stuff like that. I still wanted to get more conversion from physical into elemental because I do still have some physical damage. So I am using Hrim Sorrow Gloves, non-fated version, for 50% of physical damage converted into cold, Rebuke of the Vaal sword like I said, Lycosidae shield, Mark of the Elder, and then another ring is Shaped Ring. Since most of my damage was cold, I am also using Hatred Aura, Blood and Sand for more area damage, Frost Bomb because it does give a lot of damage, Elemental Weakness, actually even using Herald of Ash because it does give a bit more clear speed, and I am using Elemental Focus, so I could not use Herald of Ice. And I am doing that because I do not want to slow enemies down in any way. I'm not using any golems, not blinding, because this build requires enemies to attack you as fast as possible to be able to kill them fast. So some bosses like Hydra is pretty easy to kill with this, because when the Hydra does the barrage thing, you proc so many reckonings and actually can see the damage being pretty decent. However, this build is only level 87 and it is not as tanky as I would like it to be, and way less tanky than the pure physical version, and way more conditional. By the way, I probably should have mentioned this at the start, but this is Gladiator, because Gladiator has this Painforge node, which doubles your damage from counterattacks. It's basically the same as having 100% chance to deal double damage, and getting over 100% would be pointless. And then Violent Retaliation would be much better for physical, but it also helps cap your block chance, because Reckoning triggers each time you block, and by default it has 0.4 second cooldown, but I do have Helmet enchantment to increase the cooldown and recovery speed, and a bit of cooldown and recovery speed on the belt as well, so my Reckoning has 0.29 seconds cooldown. So I can trigger it up to 3.4 times per second. Also, I'm using Vengeance, but Vengeance has 1.2 second cooldown. It does have better base damage. It is 360 degrees hit, but it seems to have less reach than Reckoning. Actually, my Reckoning with all the plus weapon range is almost off screening, and I guess that's the only advantages of this build over the Facebreakers build. So for the last part of the video, let me show you something, and just gonna show you path for building. So I had to modify some item to simulate the chance to deal double damage, because this does not properly calculate that. So I have the flask for that, 100% chance to deal double damage. Also I had to modify Lycosidae to include that 250 to 300 cold damage to counterattacks. So here's my Reckoning damage. This is against the Shaper. This is also if I proc Elemental Overload, which doesn't always happen. Also, I only have 2 damaging flasks, I guess, Azira's Promise and then Sulfur Flask. I also didn't show you that I have Helmet with -9 cold and -9 lightning resistance to nearby enemies. For some reason, path for building only counts -9 cold, so I modified -9 lightning rest in here. Select all the things. Rage doesn't, for some reason rage doesn't properly calculate in here. The rage itself should also give attack damage, but it doesn't for some reason for Reckoning. So here's my Reckoning damage. With all the items planned, I actually not using Watcher's Eye, but if I use Watcher's Eye, let's say instead of that, I could increase the damage a bit more, right? So, and I try to min-max quite a lot. I even try to, actually let me show you physical build first. So remember, 356, let's say 350 for 350,000 DPS average damage. Now let's go into the pure physical build. Boom, 588 already. That is also against the Shaper. And look at that, I don't even have all the items set up. This is also the same level. It's just mind-boggling how much easier and cheaper it is. The only investment is this render shield, and you would be much tankier, like much tankier. I would have much more life from the passive skill tree. Yeah, and like I said, surrender is like 120 130 chaos right now, I think, and you would also recover life each time you block, which I did not have on the elemental build, and I had to actually even get cold damage leash as life on amulet on elemental build. On this you don't have to. And as a Facebreakers, get Facebreakers, get couple auras like Herald of Purity, Pride, Blood and Sand, yeah, it is in Blood stance. I'm also using Tempest Shield, of course, on hit vulnerability, and that's all. Cyclone with Maim to get a bit more damage. Rage doesn't really matter for some reason. It doesn't show in here. Rings, just very basic rings, nothing really maxed out. Helmet just gives a bit more piece. Oh right, Lion's Roar. That one is also a bit expensive, but even without that, the damage is still much higher. I also modified this. So yeah, I don't recommend you doing elemental build, and this would be much cheaper. By the way, you get Resolute Technique because you don't really get a lot of accuracy with this. But then again, this build I guess would not have Vengeance, but you probably would even want Cyclone on a maybe even 6 link, since you only need 3 links for the Reckoning inside the Surrender Shield. By the way, Reckoning is linked, let's see, where is it? Close Combat, Pulverize and Brutality, but Close Combat doesn't properly, I mean, is not calculated in path of building at all. So instead I'm using Concentrated Effect because it has similar multiplier, so you would not be using Conk Effect and you would be using Close Combat. So the couple of final thoughts. This elemental build is really not worth it. It is more expensive than the pure Feast build, requires much more effort for this to work, and doesn't really have any big advantages over pure Feast build. Now if you wanna see the pure physical build in action, I would recommend you to check Octavian. As of this recording he still doesn't have the build guide video for it, but you can catch him streaming. I will put a link in the description. I will also include my path for building import code for the elemental and for the half planned physical build. And that's it. My next build is gonna be Dual Strike Slayer, using 2 Rebuke of the Vaal swords, because obviously 1 was not enough. And that build is also almost finished now, so it shouldn't take long. So for now, thank you for watching and I'll see you soon.